world where everyone has a decent place to live. That's the model, the vision of a non-governmental organization whose work is dedicated to eliminating poor housing here on the face of the earth. Now, founded in 1976, this organization has been helping to work in partnership with people in need of building simple yet very decent shelter. In a fast-growing country like Vietnam, modern houses are mushrooming in many cosmopolitan areas such as Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. However, many thatch roof houses still exist here in Vietnam, and this is where Habitat for Humanity has been coming in to provide a helping hand.
Habitat for Humanity Vietnam began in October 2001 in the city of Da Nang, in the central coastal region of the country. It seeks to eliminate inadequate housing and homelessness by making safe shelter a matter of conscience and action. Habitat believes that providing a decent place to live dramatically transforms lives for the better, for homeowners, for families, for whole communities. Mobilizing volunteers from within Vietnam and around the world is a special feature of Habitat for Humanity's program. This provides an effective platform for people to join with beneficiary home partners in addressing the issues resulting from inadequate shelter, as well as providing an avenue to develop and nurture relationships and understanding between people from diverse backgrounds and cultures.
That organization, ladies and gentlemen, is Habitat for Humanity. Now, in our Top Vietnam today, we're very honored to welcome the country director of Habitat for Humanity here in Vietnam in our studio today. That's Mr. Robin Schell. Thank you very much for joining us. And he'll talk to us about how Habitat for Humanity has been helping 6,600 families here in Vietnam to have better housing. So thank you very much, Mr. Schell, Robin, for coming here to talk to us. First of all, can you briefly introduce yourself and also a little bit about the work that Habitat for Humanity is doing?
Well, thank you very much for welcoming me. I've been living here in Hanoi for 5.5 years now. And before that, I worked with Habitat for Humanity in the United States, and I have lived in various countries and worked with international non-profit organizations for more than 25 years.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the vision, the motivation of Habitat for Humanity, what it does?
Well, when it was founded by a gentleman called Millard Fuller, his motivation was the simple fact that he had become a millionaire by the time he was 28. This was in the 1960s. And his whole goal and passion in life was to make more money. But he was suddenly convicted through the Christian faith that he was brought up in. He was challenged as to what was happening with his life. His wife and children had left him, and he decided, therefore, to try to get his wife back. He had a sudden inspiration to give away all his money and start again. And he identified the fact that many people where he lived in South Georgia in the United States were poor and didn't have housing. And those people typically were black people who suffered significant stigma and discrimination. And he found it really contradicted the Christian faith in which he was brought up, in which everybody is equal, whatever their color, race, nationality. So he started a program called Partnership Housing to help poor black people in South Georgia near a place called Plains and a place called Americus to get a simple, decent house. And doing it in such a way that he mobilized labor and financial resources and materials to help them build their house. They had to work, and they had to actually buy the house through a kind of what the Americans call a mortgage system.
A mortgage system.
So that's how it started.
Wow. So it started in south of Georgia with this very simple idea, and then it grew into a bigger project to what is known as Habitat for Humanity today. Now, you mentioned simple, decent housing. So for the audience who might not be able to imagine what, a simple or decent housing may be, what is the criteria for Habitat for Humanity in building those houses for the people?
Well, the house needs to be safe, it needs to be strong, and it needs to be simple and affordable. And that varies with different countries. We have variation, but very typically it might be about 4 meters by 9 meters, a simple house. But it's not a rigid program. We negotiate with the family and with the local province as to what is most suitable, taking expert advice.
Right, exactly, and the fact that the home partners have a chance to participate in the whole process makes the house, the end product, much more suitable to their liking as well.
Well, that's the idea. I mean, we, in agreeing the arrangement with each family who participate, of course they need to have a certain level of need for this kind of assistance, and then they need to be willing to partner. And the partnership includes two key elements. One is what we call sweat equity, which means they work on the house.
Right.
And the other is being able to pay for the house. And they may pay the whole cost, or they may pay a portion of it. Most families that we help, you quoted that we've served over 6,600 families in Vietnam. Most of those, it's been through a process of improving what they already have. A smaller proportion, it's a complete house that we build with them. But most of them, it's a gradual upgrading of their house. So, for example, a family may be living in a shack with a very muddy floor, and they may take a loan from us and fix the floor, and we provide the technical support and help them in doing it a new floor. And then when they've paid back that loan, they may take another loan and fix the roof. So that's the most common kind of approach.
That's the most common approach here in Vietnam. Now, talking about the programs in Vietnam, as the country director for Habitat for Humanity now, I know you've only been in this position for the last 6 months, but how do you judge the effectiveness of the program so far in your time being the country director?
Well, you know, it's very thrilling to see people who you've seen living in very poor housing, suffering poor health, children not able to go to school and stuff, and to see them in a decent, clean, healthy house. It, in addition to the physical security that it provides and the chance for better health and to be able to go to school and do their homework and all that, I think it's also the feeling of achievement, particularly when they've worked on the house themselves and when they're paying towards the cost. They feel maybe for the first time that they've actually achieved something significant. That's exciting to see, and to see some of the tears of joy in the hearts of the families.
We'll go back to the home partnership where Habitat for Humanity works with the local people in order to provide them better housing. So as far as we understand, the Habitat for Humanity, as you said, in the project, most common here in Vietnam is kind of making the houses, improving the housing through loans. Are there other kinds of partnership, like microfinance, other modes of partnership?
Well, in some situations, particularly with families at the poorer end of the scale, they may just pay a small deposit, a small amount of money at the beginning, maybe 3 million or 4 million or 5 million, depending on their circumstances. And then we may pay a subsidy from Habitat for Humanity, a grant, that's a donation. And then they may take a loan for part of it. In another case, the whole house may be sponsored by a local corporation, for example, and the family just pay a small amount at the beginning and don't take any loan at all. And then the costs are reduced typically by mobilizing volunteers to help and often getting donated materials.
Exactly. What are some of the challenges in terms of particularly programs here in Vietnam that you see?
Well, I think one of the challenges is the sheer numbers. You know, as many as 4 million families are living in inadequate shelter. And we also are involved with water, clean water supply and sanitation. And, you know, 50% of the rural population lack decent sanitation, which is a very important factor for health. You know, upwards of over 30% lack access to clean water. So the big challenge is scaling up the program. to meet the need in a more impactful way.
Right. So going over kind of beating the numbers, trying to live up to that. In terms of your work so far in the 6 months that you've been with Habitat for Humanity, do you have any interesting memories in kind of working with the families and also the volunteers as well in building houses here in Vietnam?
One particular memory is of a gentleman who was a veteran of the American War, an American, coming here and volunteering, and meeting with another volunteer who I believe was from Hanoi, anyway from around here, who was also a veteran of the same war, but on obviously opposite sides, and shaking hands and embracing each other. And it was this Habitat for Humanity building together that brought them together. Other memories are when you see a child who was crawling around in the mud with a house that kept getting flooded and water leaking in, and then able to crawl around on a nice new tile, clean, dry floor.
The year 2007, a common and heartbreaking sight here at VNtienganh Ward, Texas City, in the Mekong Delta province of Kiên. Despite the rain and cold, these locals, all of them ethnic minorities, struggle to salvage any sellable item from the local dump site. Several of them had to live in makeshift shelters assembled from the very garbage they collected. Their prayers of living in decent houses got answered at the beginning of 2009. Sang Thị today no longer needs to make a living from the dump site. The house she lives in today is part of Habitat for Humanity's project in VNtienganh named Rainbow Village.
Không có dơ giấy gì nữa, nó sạch sẽ, không có dơ. Mừng vậy đó. Ở đẳng thì trời mưa lại hai vợ chồng nó cuốn ngồi lên này, nhà dột cột siêu hết trơn rồi. Ở đây thì nó khỏe, thấy khỏe nó phần này nữa.
Rainbow Village project has so far provided decent housing for hundreds of citizens in Texas City. Each house is constructed over a budget of over 70 million Vietnam dong or $3,500 US.
Tức là xây dựng 92 cái ngôi nhà và một cái nhà lầu là nhà dạy nghề để mà vừa là dạy đưa bốc cái số người trong cái bãi rác ra cho người ta ởในcái nhà này. Người ta đổi đời là mà người ta nói chúng con là không bao giờ dám mơ mà dám mơ ta nói.
Rainbow Village project is expected to provide housing for 90 households by the end of the year. These houses, while simplistic at first sight, are for most of the locals a dream come true.
So about this Rainbow Village project, why is it called Rainbow Village?
Well, you know, it was before I joined Habitat that this happened, but I heard that they were brainstorming about what to call it, and there was heavy rain. And then following the rain, they spotted a rainbow in the sky, all the beautiful colors of the rainbow. And someone came up with the idea of calling it rainbow because the rainbow speaks of freshness. The water has brought freshness to the earth and the opportunity for new plants to grow and to be revived and to be fresh. And so the thought was that this project would enable people living in a dusty, dirty rubbish dump to have a fresh life, a fresh start, and grow up into a fresh community.
So about this Rainbow Village, I know you have a lot of projects going on in Reksa town of Kiên province. What about this particular project, Rainbow Village, that we just saw?
Well, it's a unique and rather special project because the people living in Rainbow Village were living on a dump site, a trash site. They were homeless, mostly ethnic minority people, so very poor. And now to see many of them living in decent houses in Rainbow Village is very encouraging. And this is an ongoing program. So far, about 38 families are in the houses. And by the end of 2011, another 18 months, the goal is to have 90 families living in houses in Rainbow Village.
You mentioned that they used to live on a dump site, and I know that what they have their main job is actually collecting rubbish in the dump site.
Yes.
So how have their lives changed now? What do they do for work? What?
Well, people do a variety of things. Some have been trained by us in construction techniques.
Okay.
So they've participated in helping to build the houses. And so through that, they've learned some construction techniques. And particularly, one of the things we're doing in Raxia, VNtienganh generally, I should say, is experimenting with new technology to be more environmentally friendly in the way we build. And one particular product is the CMU, the concrete masonry unit, and trying to make that in such a way that it uses waste materials as much as possible to make it less impactful on the environment in making these things. Quite a few people have been trained in making these blocks, and some of these people are the people living in Rainbow Village. Other examples of people doing, beginning to do some weaving and a few income-generating projects, but we have a bit of a way to go on that yet.
Well, I think that Habitat for Humanity has been able to help. They have been given not only better housing, but also better opportunities in terms of what they can do for a job, participating in environmentally friendly, community-based projects.
Well, that's right, and actually in the upcoming phase, during the coming year, we're going to have a bit more emphasis on perhaps in partnership with another organization that has more expertise on this, but a bit more emphasis on community-based vocational training and job skills, linking people with employers who can give them training on the job, which is an effective way to do it. For example, motorbike repair, television repair, bicycle repair, animal raising, those kind of things that people can do.
And other problems and difficulties that Vietnam is currently facing. Now, Vietnam is facing a lot with the effects of climate change. There are a lot of floods, and with the rainy season, a lot of people, local people, are facing many difficulties and challenges in terms of their living conditions. So what is Habitat for Humanity currently doing in order to help the people, the local people of Vietnam, tackle those issues in terms of the effects of climate change?
Well, we recognize that climate change adaptation is a core component to integrate into disaster preparedness and disaster response. So we have some full-time staff dedicated to disaster response and disaster risk reduction, and we're integrating this into all our programs. Every program needs to consider the impact of potential disasters and how to respond to them. When there is a disaster, we often are able to respond. For example, last autumn, Typhoon Ketsana caused a lot of damage in the central region. And so we had a program there where we assisted over 600 families to replace their roofs after Typhoon Ketsana. And we have an ongoing long-term disaster recovery program in Quang Nam, in Hiep Duc district, in fact. And that is focusing on helping people to build strong houses, to upgrade existing houses to be disaster resistant, and educating them about how to reduce the risk of a disaster. So it's education on construction techniques that improve disaster resistance with shelter, and education on basic safety when a disaster happens, and also involvement in helping people to be ready when a disaster happens to help each other.
Exactly, and I believe also after such disasters, natural disasters happen, there is also a component in which where people need relief aid in terms of not only having better housing, having better roofs, but also in terms of their emotional aspects. Is there a component there too where Habitat for Humanity help people get through the emotional loss?
Well, I think one aspect that helps people get over the emotional aspect is actually just getting alongside them and giving practical help and support to rebuild or repair the house. to me, I believe in saying practical action is often a good way to deal with emotional issues. But in addition to that, I should emphasize that we don't pretend we can do everything. We have our expertise in shelter, water, and sanitation. And we like to partner with other groups who may provide emergency food distribution, health care, emotional support. For example, World Concern, another NGO here, they do vocational training, livelihoods, and after disasters, they do food and non-food item distributions, cooking kits for people, household kits to help them get back on their feet. So an ideal way is for a group like Habitat for Humanity to partner with a group like World Concern and do a kind of integrated response. And we're trying to do more and more of that approach, rather than feel that we can do everything.
Make everything happen.
We need each other to help solve these issues.
Working together with other organizations.
And particularly as we face the climate change crisis, which is hitting Vietnam. It's probably one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change, as you know, through rising tides and in the coastlines and the river, the Mekong Delta particularly.
I know as you are just starting out with your work in Habitat for Humanity, how do you see the future ahead?
My vision is to just scale up, the numbers, so that we're talking about bigger numbers of families served, of Habitat for Humanity, facilitating, providing families with the opportunity to get a good house, to have a good clean water supply, and to have safe sanitation, and thus have a healthier life, have their children doing better in school, have their children growing up in a more healthy environment. Those are the kind of things that's my vision is to see.
Now, volunteers are a wonderful, if not indispensable, part of the work that Habitat for Humanity is doing. They come from local areas and also from across the world. Currently, last month, Habitat for Humanity here in Vietnam had a group of 14 volunteers from different countries such as Hungary, Hong Kong, Russia, and also the United States come to Vietnam to help build a house in Vĩnh Phúc province. So we'll get a look at their work in the following.
Braving the heat, the 14-member team today works on a build at Ngoc Thanh commune of Vĩnh Phúc province. The volunteers of different age groups come from different walks of life. Some are participating in Habitat for Humanity for the first time. Others have joined for nearly 20 years. Among the team are local volunteers, inspired by the humanitarian work. The newly initiated eagerly learn new skills. The more experienced members feel attached to their cause, or even relate to the locals' harsh living conditions.
Well, I like being able to feel like I'm helping the people and build a new home for someone, because not everyone is as privileged and blessed as me to have a home, so being able to spread that is a great thing.
We like to help people having a house because it's not easy, and we live in a house small like this with wood. And wood was all damaged by termite, so I know how it is to have a house.
Lê Ngọc Doanh and VNtienganh come from poor ethnic minority families. They feel happy to receive such a generous support, which helps them to stabilize their agricultural production and improve their daily living conditions.
Gia đình tôi rất phấn khởi được cái tổ chức Habitat này, họ quan tâm, họ đưa người đến để giúp đỡ gia đình. Coi là cái tinh thần họ, cái sự lao động của họ nhiệt tình mà họ niềm nở vui vẻ.
Trong bây giờ được cái căn nhà này là với gia đình cũng vừa tiền vay của quỹ 25 triệu đồng cũng như là đồng vốn của gia đình. Cảm ơn đoàn Habitat là đã về để xây dựng và giúp đỡ gia đình những cái lúc khó khăn này.
Fatigued but pleased to help, the volunteers also get an exposure to life in Vietnam. The beneficiaries' gratefulness and warm emotions are further sources of motivations for the group to pursue their volunteer activities in building homes and hope.
So as you can see from this report, volunteers have become quite an instrumental part in helping the villagers in Ngọc Thanh village of Vĩnh Phúc province to have better housing. Now, we're lucky enough actually to have some of those volunteers in our studio today. Let me welcome first Elena from Russia, and also Kevin from the United States. Thank you very much, you guys, for coming here to talk with us about your work with Habitat for Humanity. First of all, can you tell us how the trip has been going so far? Lena?
The trip was just excellent. You see, it is my first experience here in Vietnam, and I am amazed very much.
Wonderful. And for Kevin, I know this is your third time coming back to Vietnam. How is it for you this time?
It's good because I don't feel like I have to do the tourist things as much, so I can relax and enjoy the local people and just search out new restaurants and things like that. So it's been very nice.
How is the project going so far? Lena?
For me, it is just, you see, it's my ninth trip to different, to Habitat for Humanity trips. And this trip was, I'd say it was the most interesting for me. I have never met such hospitable and such friendly people as here.
You're in Vietnam. How about in the project itself, working with the local people in building the house? What has been your experience?
It's been a great experience. You see, when you work just hand by hand with local people, when you can teach them in some way, and in some way they can teach you. It's great. Yeah.
Wow. Has this also been a learning experience for you, Kevin?
Very much. It was very nice working with the local family, and it was very nice because the family was very involved, and that was a very good learning experience.
Now, for Elena, you've had, you said, 9 other projects with Habitat for Humanity. How about you, Kevin? Is this your first project with
Habitat?
First Habitat. How is it so far working with Habitat?
I think it's very nice. It's nice to be able to visit the family every day and enjoy working with them. They also were around during the day, like lunchtime. We could talk to them if we wanted to. It's just been nice because we saw a small village that most people probably never see. People tend to stay in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh. So it was very nice to see the rural people and experience that.
For you, Lena, comparing this trip, I mean, I'm sure every trip must have its own unique taste, its own, but comparing this trip in terms of Habitat for Humanity with other trips, how is it different? How has it been different from the other projects?
It was just different in this way that we were working close to the family. So in previous times we were working probably on many houses. This time it was just one house, one family, and so we were really very close to the family. So we could see their real life, their house, their way of living. This chicken and cows just helping us to work. So they came to our work site to check how this building is continuing. So it is, and you see, and when we finished this, we almost finished this house, and the owner of this house, that grandmother, she was crying, and we were so impressed. We began to cry ourselves also.
It was a touching
moment.
Yes,
a touching moment, very touching moment, because we became just as relatives in some way. You see.
Wow, it's a very familial experience where you got to really bond with each other and also with the family themselves. For you, Kevin, I know this is your first Habitat for Humanity trip. What specifically do you do in terms of building the house?
No training provided before. I'm not a construction person, so I basically have no skills for house building, for home building. But a vast majority of the work we did in this house was just labor. We had I joined this team at 6 people or 8 people that have traveled to many builds over the years. Over the last like 11 years, some of these people have been together, traveling to different countries. So I'm a newcomer into the group. So some of them have quite good skills now from all this work around the world. So they help you learn. The local people helped us learn because the techniques you may have learned in another country may not work here in Vietnam.
Exactly.
You may have built a house for 11 years, but you have to build it the way they do in Vietnam because they know, they live here. They know what the monsoon is going to do to a house or whatever.
Right.
So, you have to trust them.
And it's a wonderful experience for you because now you can come back to the United States and also Russia and say, I know how to the proper criteria for a house in Vietnam.
Yeah.
For you, Lena, throughout the process, the 2 weeks that you've been in this project, what are some of the interesting stories that you would like to share with our audience?
Maybe it's not a story, but you see, we had a team consisting of 14 people, and the oldest one is 78, and the youngest 17.
Wow.
So you see a big difference of age, and you see, but one woman who's just about 75 also, that she's the wife of that man of 78. You see, she's very good in scaffolding, doing work in scaffolds. You see, standing on the height of from just, you can't imagine, and local people couldn't imagine her in 75 years standing on this scaffolding and just doing the bricks, laying bricks.
For you, Kevin, how about for you? What were some of the interesting memories that you'll take back to the States?
Well, I have to follow Elena. That it's an inspiration to hope that I can do as much when I'm in my 70s. To be as strong,
very inspiring woman,
and committed and amazing, and still be able to travel around. But I think that's what keeps people healthy, and you have to keep active and learn new things.
In terms of the other benefits, what other benefits of participating in the Habitat for Humanity program do you see, Lena?
Sometimes people just think about me as a crazy person. You see, because everyone whom I know, when I was going to Vietnam, asked me if I'm going to visit beach. And yes, because Vietnam is popular in Russia now just for taking vacation here. And but it is a tremendous difference for being a tourist in a country and to be a helper. Because you see people from the other side of the. You are not a tourist. You can touch, you can smell, you can eat, you can just be a part of this society, and it is an experience you never can receive it as a tourist in a country. It's tremendous. It's a great difference, and it inspires me very much.
Now we've just heard what Kevin and Lena has to say about their experience with Habitat for Humanity. We'll hear some of the experiences of the other volunteers in the program in the following.
Well, I feel good about it because you can actually see that you're doing something. It's not, if you contribute money, you never know where it's going, and if you, it's much. I like to hands-on better.
I'm a professional civil engineer by trade, and so Habitat just fit me perfectly. And I wanted to travel at the same time, so I've combined my traveling and my Habitat. So it's worked perfect for my wife and I. But I really like getting out and working with the local people, and in traveling like here in Vietnam, we're not tourists. We're actually working with the local people, so that's what's really fun, I think, and I enjoy meeting people, even if I don't speak their language.
Joining different people from around the world, working with the local people, enjoying the culture, understand how they look and how they live, that's all I enjoy.
Cũng là lần đầu tiên em đi xây dựng một ngôi nhà hoặc một công trình gì đấy, nên là em rất thêm nhiều kinh nghiệm cho cuộc sống của mình sau này. Những phong cách giao tiếp của người nước ngoài chẳng hạn, hoặc là những câu chuyện họ nói hàng ngày, hoặc là những cái câu đùa họ với nhau, hoặc là làm cho mình thêm hóa mình.
When you go back from another country, you arrive back in the United States and you realize how fortunate you are, and you have seen another culture, and it broadens your horizons and your vision of the world.
So now I'm going to go back to you, Robin. In terms of volunteering, volunteers, as we have seen, have become quite an important part of your program. They come from different universities, different schools, and also different backgrounds across the world. Have you had opportunities also to recruit people here in Vietnam to take part into the projects?
Yes, we have actually. In fact, probably the biggest number was a little before I joined, when we had the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter project. The former U.S. President Jimmy Carter came out to Vietnam last November, and there was a project in Hai Dung province, and we had a large number of young people from Hanoi, young Vietnamese students from universities, colleges and schools from Hanoi came out and participated in that, together with international volunteers from several different countries. And we really want to build on that. We really want to recruit more and more young Vietnamese, and all ages actually, but I guess particularly young people, to join us. And we have groups coming from international schools in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, and from local corporations. So far, mostly multinational corporations, and they will sponsor a house, provide the financing, and then come and help build it. So I'd like to see that increase more and more. We have a lot to learn from the rural families, particularly foreigners, and they have something they can learn from us, and bringing people together is a great thing.
So now for all of our audience also here and at home who would be interested in volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, as the country director, what would you have to say for them? How could they get in touch, and how could they have more access to these programs?
Well, you know, there's various ways you can get involved, and a good idea is to contact us. Email is one option on the, I think it's on the screen there, info@habitatvietnam.org, and contacting us by telephone. But raising, people often do kind of special projects to raise funds. Sponsoring a house, sponsoring a family is a great thing. Obviously, financing is a key need that we have, and it's also a great blessing, I think, for many people, particularly people who are better off, who are rich, to be able to give and feel that they're able to give money and to give their time to help people who are not so well off and not so lucky. In fact, I've heard many stories from very wealthy people around the world who say the thing that's made them happiest in their life is when they've been able to give away a whole lot of their money to a group like Habitat for Humanity and help the poor. It makes them feel more fulfilled than all the other things you can do with a lot of money.
For you, Lena, what would you say to the audience, not only here in Vietnam, but also across the world, who would like to volunteer?
We people, we are human beings, yes, and we must help each other. And it doesn't depend if you have money or you have not money. You always have your hands, and you can always help with your hands.
Exactly, and it just comes to show how easy it is to help, and how fulfilling that experience can be. Kevin?
I think everyone needs to be aware that you don't have to be a construction engineer or a carpenter. Many people, I thought that, you know, Habitat builds houses, so you have to be an electrician or a plumber. You don't. No skills required. It's some of the hardest work I've ever done. You work from, 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. It's very hard work, especially in a climate like this, but every day you go back to the hotel like, we're going to finish this house, we're going to finish it, and it's wonderful. So I strongly encourage everybody to try it.
And maybe I can add, the reason for that is that we train local construction, we call them construction supervisors. So here, obviously, it's local Vietnamese construction supervisors. When I'm building, I make mistakes, and the construction supervisors would tactfully correct any mistakes later. So that Habitat for Humanity has developed this way of working so that we can welcome people, whatever their skill level, and with skills or with no skills, and we can make it work, because of course we make sure we have skilled people locally who ensure that it's done properly.
Right. So be assured that if you want to volunteer, there will be help on the scene, and whatever background, whatever skills you have, you can still be able to help and gain a fulfilling experience such as Kevin and Lena did. So thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing your stories about Habitat for Humanity, and also for encouraging a lot of people who might be interested out there to have more motivation to join in and help and have a fulfilling experience. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining in this edition of Talk Vietnam. If you would like to join in the work of Habitat for Humanity, do go to the website listed right now on your screen, and hopefully you'll have a wonderful experience. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk more next time. This is Talk Vietnam.